So we're continuing with chapter 21 and we're on the last section. We were going over nationalist revolutions or revolutionary nationalism. During this period of time in the 1800s, while Britain was having its peace, we have the rest of Europe going through all these crazy revolutions and all this preparation coming for a future war that we would see in World War I and on to World War II. We just finished talking about France and on to what was going on in France and Germany, being both very unstable in many ways. The Germans coming together, but having the power now would go into thinking that they could possibly rule all of Europe and forming a navy and a powerful military in case of the future of coming against Britain. So anyway, here's where we were. So we're talking about these other revolutions. There's a couple of other things that happened here. And going over this, I know it gets kind of complicated, but as you go through, you'll see everything coming. It starts at like 1848 for the Communist Manifesto of Karl Marx and how communism and socialism can come into different countries, and how in doing this is the promotion of a revolutionary spirit in that against whatever, the problems in races and religion, and on to against labor unions, however they could get a foothold. So this unrest would bring in a time where they could come in and bring in communism. That was their plan, and that's what was going on from 1848. So let's talk about the demise of Austrian power. So we have the country of Austria here, but we have this here, the Lower Austria, this being this area. Here's Hungary. See where Hungary is. So now we have a national movement for the people of Hungary, and they've been under Austrian rule in Hungary. So here they are, Hungarians. Many Hungarians, they're of a different race than the Austrian race. And so many Hungarians wanted independence and a representative government. So the Austrian Empire finally realized that if they were to survive, the Hungarian nationalists would have to be appeased. And this led to a political compromise. So I look at this as Austrian basically saying, look at all these revolutions. Now we have to deal with the Hungarians and saying, okay, let's go and send our diplomats. Let's not have a war. Let's have a political compromise here. So this was one of the good things. Let's just tell you that, of what was going on. So this political compromise in Austria made a dual monarchy. So basically in Austria they said, well, we'll have two kings, two monarchies here, but we'll come together and protect each other. Good idea, huh? In 1867, the Austrian Empire became the Austro-Hungarian Empire, or a dual monarchy. So Francis Joseph I, Habsburg, remember the Habsburg will go way back in history of kings and queens in this area of the, going clear back to almost the times of Rome, the Habsburg rulers ruling as many kings and queens in different countries, including Spain too, and Austria. So he was a Habsburg. So his as for his bloodline goes way back. And so anyway, he was both going to be the king of Hungary and the emperor of Austria in this dual monarchy. So each country would have its own language. Each country would have its own flag. Each country would have its own parliament and run its own legislator, right? So, but as for their financial affairs, for defense and foreign affairs, they were going to be under the officers common to both countries. So when you came to military, both countries were going to protect each other. And as for their financial affairs in ruling, they would be able to raise money for a military. So Austria preserved its empire. So you can see this is actually a good thing for Austria, because there could have been a horrible revolution at this time between Hungary and Austria. Okay, now we're taking a little sidetrack here onto Paris. Paris is in France. We're going to talk about the Paris Commune during this time. In 1870 now, remember they had the first, going through the first government set up during that time was under Napoleon, the first Napoleon, right? And then they had the second under Napoleon's nephew, right? Napoleon III. And now we're going to have a third government set up. So in 1870, the French elected an aristocratic assembly for the monarchical government. So they're getting together to put together another government. Then we're talking about Paris. A large group of citizens in Paris banded together into a Marxist, remember Karl Marx, the communist, commune. So now we got this going on in Paris again. Oh dear. So Paris is getting together in this big commune, and they're thinking that they're going to live in the Karl Marx's Communist Manifesto, right? So the Paris Commune proposed to forcibly establish a more democratic system in the style of the First French Revolution. So they thought, we'll just go back to the First French Revolution. Remember how terrible that was in 1789. So we're going to go back and put together our democratic system in Paris. Of course, there's going to be war. So after several months, the communards, or the Paris Commune, were defeated after a gruesome fight, leaving how many people? 25,000 people died. How terrible is that? So here's some pictures of the Paris Commune. So coming again, Karl Marx, his manifesto in 1848, now it's 1870 in Paris. They're thinking, we're going to get together and we're going to put together our community and make France, communists. And that's what happened. And we're going to do it violently. See how they set up the walls here, and we're fighting them in a violent way. So, the Third French Republic. Remember, we have the First Republic. The First French Republic was after the French Revolution, the first big French Revolution, 1789, and that was Napoleon. And then Napoleon went through the Napoleonic Wars, and then became into the Second French Republic, which was under Napoleon's nephew, and that was put out by Germany. We know that. And now we have a Third French Republic. 1, 2, 3. And this is between 1871 to 1914, this French Republic. So it's crazy times in France. So the left coalition held power in 1899 to 1905 and were devoted to weaken the conservative opposition to the Republic, which means when you think of left, they were socialists. They were tending towards communism, right? The left coalition. So now you have them fighting now to take over all of France. When I say fighting, they were fighting diplomatically at this time, not so much physically. So the French army was democratized and political. When I say that, the French army was very politically towards this Third Republic being similar to Napoleon's time, so they were very political, and the French army was chosen by the left radicals, right? The education was secularized. They had no Christian background, no Christian education, no private education. The government was controlling the education of children. So, and they were bringing in a lot of terrible propaganda. But many socialists grew impatient and withdrew. So suddenly the socialists think, okay, we're going that way, but we need to do this faster. So they withdrew so that they could figure out how the socialist was going to take over the government of France. So in 1906 to 1910, there was much labor unrest. Remember I said about communism, they come in and they try to make labor unrest. saying the labor and the business, try to get that out. Of course, there's problems usually between labor and the employees and the employers a lot of times, and of course they need to negotiate, but they did it by violence, and so they caused many strikes that caused much violence all over France. And there was no way they would even negotiate. They were just fighting. And so that's what the Socialist Party does. Remember, if they can try to get the country into a revolutionary spirit with race, with religion, with labor, or however they can do it, so they could come in and then say, we can help you. We'll take over. That's what's going on here. And this all stirred up by radical socialists. That's what it says. It's the key. So 1906, 1910, they're stirring up the French in labor. We're going to go and just get this labor. Let's cause strikes. This strike here for this factory. Strike for this. Strike here. Strike here. Let's cause more violence. Get them really angry at each other. They're going to kill each other. And so this was all stirred up by the radical socialists. That's what they do. And so the Third Republic was politically unstable, with the average cabinet only lasting 9 months. So this republic in France would come and go and come and go, and it was just like France was totally unstable again. So here we have basically this is our coin. This is de la République Française, and you're having these presidents on their coins, and this is in 1879 to 1887. But we're talking clear up into 1900 now. So the foreign affairs in France, because of Bismarck, remember, Germany's policies, Bismarck was an enemy of France. France was isolated from the European powers. He isolated the powers. But by 1894, France entered into an alliance. So France here all alone, all this time, Bismarck making sure that France is all alone as his enemy. And so France could not do anything, and France is a chaotic mess. But in 1894, France did decide to have an alliance with none other than Russia. So even if you go to Russia, back then France actually at a time was very friendly with Russia. And so then in 1904, a few years, 10 years later, Entente Cordiale. And now what is that? And that was France reconciling with Great Britain. So now we have a triple alliance. Here's a picture of the triple alliance over here. We have a triple alliance with Russia, red, France, and Great Britain. They're good. Their alliance means that they have decided to defend each other if there's war times, and they will stand behind each other. So we have this alliance, and we see how the alliance will grow for Germany to Austria-Hungary down to Italy, especially Germany, Italy. Remember how they were pretty aligned at this time. So but we have here this triple alliance. So in France during this time, even though all of what was going on, they added colonies in Asia and Africa and the West Indies and in Algeria. So here are a bunch of French, the French in Africa. And despite all that, France is going in, France explorers are going in here and actually making colonies all over the world. And in fact, France's population overseas was more than the people they had in their country. So despite the craziness of France, we see that the colonies, France getting a lot of colonies throughout the world. And so was Germany, and so was Britain. Let's just say that. The French economy. So what was going on in France? Remember, Germany during this time started flourishing, and of course England is flourishing. And so we have France experiencing increased agriculture and the industrial production resulting in falling prices. So basically, France was increasing in their agriculture, and this made the prices fall. So what they did in the 1890s was all they did was basically put high tariffs so that they weren't going to import agricultural products. Instead, they were going to actually say, let's buy French agriculture. Let's not import any more agriculture. In fact, let's put a tariff so that the agriculture and any any agricultural products coming in will be higher priced. And that's what happens to protect France's own domestic agriculture, which is a good idea in many cases. So there was a much higher percent of French workers that remained in agriculture. So France is a big agricultural community, and more than England and Germany. So in 1900, France was the leading exporter of iron ore, wine, and luxury items. We know that. So France became elite in different luxury items, wine, and it was, becoming, the economy was enjoying the highest standard of living on the continent, despite craziness. Now we're going to talk about the rise of modern socialism. So the term socialism did not come into use until the mid-1820s. Remember, 1848 was the Communist Manifesto, so 1820s. Although there have been basic ideas way back in Greece and Rome and of socialism, so it's not a new thing. But here it became rampant because of the revolutionary attitudes, spirits that were going on in that attitude of revolution had a lot to do with socialism. In 1840, the term was used in France, socialism in Germany, and socialism in England, to refer to those who worked for alternative methods of social and economic organization of society. So basically, socialism was going to be the way they're going to put together or organize society on a whole. And what was this socialism? What would this socialism mean? Well, it would mean the goals of common ownership of property, political and social equality, and the reorganization and sharing of production, distribution, and consumption of goods. So let's go over that again. So it meant that there would be common ownership. Who would own? The government, right? Common government ownership of property. That means you couldn't own your house, you couldn't own property. And also the common goals of political. Your politics had to be with what the government said. And there had to be social equality, meaning not people that are working to have more, but everyone would have be equal in financial state. So basically, that comes out, everybody will be poor, except for those that they want to be rich. Let's just say that. But basically saying equality in finances. There won't be any rich people. There won't be any, real poor people. But they would take money that you have earned, if you earn too much money, and give it to somebody else. Is what they're doing. And a reorganization and sharing of production, meaning, okay, if you need to buy bread, that everybody gets in line to buy bread in the morning. If you need to buy milk, you better get in line to buy milk. Any goods coming in, you only get a certain amount of goods. You only get to buy what they tell you can buy. You have a limit on what you can buy of certain goods, whether it be food, whether it be other type of products. So you couldn't go buy, if you wanted to buy a couple iPhones, they didn't have them back then, but I'm just using that as an example. You could only have what they wanted to give you, right? And you only could be if you wanted to go in and be, say you wanted to be a builder, and they said, no, you're not going to be a builder, you're going to be a toilet cleaner. They could tell you what you can do. So basically, socialism is controlled by the state. And here, they're all saying, socialism, revolution, we want revolution. If only they had their one finger, first finger up and said Jesus, the Jesus movement, like that. Jesus is the answer, right? Jesus is the answer. That's what I say. Anyway, we go on. Utopian socialism. So socialism, there's different kinds of socialism, and this is called utopian socialism. So what is that? Well, they wanted, and with Karl Marx and everything, it came into being, but it was magnified by other romantic writers during that time that were socialists. And they wanted to have the perfect society. That's what they were looking. Because of the Romantic movement and the philosophies in France now, it became the home of the earliest brand of socialism. The first brand of socialism is that utopian socialism. Here's a picture how they wanted it. okay, we know everything is going to be here, and we're going to build this way, and everybody's going to get along, and we're going to control everyone around by our utopian, the perfect society, right? Utopian socialism was called this because of the founding of the utopian communities where socialist ideas could be tried. These perfect societies were attempted, but were short-lived and ended in failure. Here's one of them. They got a bunch of people together and says, we're forming our own commune here, and we're going to have the perfect society, and we're going to control control everyone and make sure that everyone's taken care of, and all this here, the perfect utopian society. The main error of socialism, of utopian socialism, was that man is capable of perfection. Is man capable of perfection? No. There's always one tyrant that wants to control everybody, isn't there? And this was proved wrong over and over, that man is not capable of perfection until Jesus comes again, right? So the perfect societies never lasted. The sinfulness of human nature made utopia an impossibility. So if you're reading about these utopian societies, you'll find this common thing is that we want everything perfect, and then what would happen? They'll have sinful man will come in and try to take over and end up in some type of violent uprising of some way, or other types of uprising. But here we have the utopian socialism. Other brands of socialism, we have Louis Blanc. Now, you know what? When I get these pictures off the internet and I see this, and that's always like, what in the world are you doing? You Napoleon or what? But anyway, what's his hand doing in here? Well, it actually means a secret society. Some people think it's a secret society of, the Freemasons, and others think it's Illuminati or something. So, but it always, secret societies are always to look at like, what is he doing? Is it a secret communist socialist society? Are they running together or what? It means a hidden hand. Now, I'm not going to say all of the guys that put their hands in there of a certain Luciferian society, but it's just a question. I always go, what is that guy doing? So I used to believe, that was just the way they did things, and that's just the way the fashion was of the day. No. Go back to Napoleon. Napoleon wasn't doing it because it was fashionable. So anyway, some socialists wanted a more direct route in favor of forceful seizures of governmental power. So the socialists now, they just didn't want little communities of utopian communities. They wanted to control the whole kit and caboodle, right? And have forceful seizures of big governments. They wanted the whole government to be socialized, right? So there was militant socialism, and that landed many men and women in prison because as they rose up and said, we're going to do this, we're going to revolutionize, they ended up in prison in many areas, and especially in Russia. But there was also democratic socialism, and they call it proletarian socialism. What's proletarian? Means workers. So in which workers would publicly own and control industry. So because, the so-called wealthy business owners, they wanted to be controlled, so they would say, well, we'll just have the workers, everybody, Democrats, the Democrat will control everything and control all the industry, so we don't have to worry about anything. But who needs to control them? Of course, the government, right? Ends up to have a government, not a million people controlling a factory. It doesn't work, right? Louis Blanc, that's this guy here, in 1811 to 1882, originated the socialist aphorism. And what's that mean? From each according to his ability to each according to his need. So it says, we're going to bring everybody according to what we think they're able to do and what we think their needs are. That's communism, right? So think of Louis Blanc. There he is. Not one of my favorites. Reaping the whirlwind of socialism. While attempting to aid society, many of these socialism rejected the Bible and Christianity. They felt the Bible and Christianity do not work. Let's get rid of them. So if you're going to live in this socialist community, communist community, we are going to get rid of all of the evangelical Christians, right? That's for sure. That's what they did. And that's what they did in every communist country, from Russia all over the world. First would be Christians, right? Instead, they accepted all sorts of ungodly philosophies as the solutions to man's problems. So they said, here's a solution. No, we don't believe in the Bible. Here's another solution. Here's another solution. So many confused, disordered ways. And who's the author of confusion? The enemy, right? Without Christian character, any attempt to reform society will fail. Proverbs 14:34. That is true. I'm telling you, that is true. We need Christian character to reform a society, or the society will fail. As people rejected the word of God and embraced vain philosophies of men, they set the stage for the death and devastation of the world wars, reaping the whirlwind of destruction sown by their unbelief. Well, that's actually comes from the Bible in Hosea 8:7. Sorry, I kind of quoted it wrong, but here's good quoting. They sow the wind and they shall reap a whirlwind. So if you sow corruption, you will reap a whirlwind of corruption. That's what the Bible says. So this sets the stage for the world wars, because they're sowing in the wind corruption and reaping worst corruption they could imagine. Really quick here, the Romantic period, and you have a little side note on this in this chapter. And these guys, and I'll show you these guys, they were called Romantics, but they too, a lot of them were socialists. The first third of the 19th century is known for art, music, and literature, and all of it pointed to this romantic socialist type deal, I'm saying. Or there was a different, they were not, Christian based, let's just say that. 5 great poets dominated. We have William Wordsworth, we have Lord Byron, we have Percy Shelley and John Keats and Samuel Coleridge. Those are writing poetry. They were writing poetry that during this time that was very revolutionary. The Romantic movement also began in France and Germany. Remember, France and Germany were very chaotic. They were not Christian based at all. I want to show you something. You will not believe, but I looked up these guys and brought these pictures off the internet. Look at their hands. Bingo, 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 bingo. They were all in a secret society. Whether it's Freemason or the Illuminati, they were all involved in a revolutionary secret society. Probably the same one. So we have these famous German romanticists. We have Goethe, Richard Wagner, and then we have the French. We have Victor Hugo, which he wrote a lot of books too, and some of them I even liked, but then now I don't like them so well. And then on to Eugene Delacroix. So you have them all. Boom, 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 boom. Hidden hands, right? Secret society. Romantic writers and pantheism. This is the last of this whole chapter, this long chapter that I went over, but it talks about pantheism. So what is pantheism? Here we have a pantheism is a religion philosophy in which nature is the only God and there's nothing supernatural about it. Here's nature. That picture, like God and nature. Pantheism basically says that nature, the planet Earth, Mother Earth is God and there's no other God. That's pantheism. It tended to be visionaries and rebels against the beliefs and customs of the 18th century, against any religion, whether it be Catholic or Protestant. It rejected the cold, detached thinking of deism. So deism happened in Germany. And remember, they had like cold churches then because the government took over the churches. In their desire for philosophy or religion that could connect them to the world, some turned to pantheism, the false idea that God is not separate from nature, but that nature is God. Woo! Isn't that the foundation of a world war going on? We got all kinds of things going on here, you know, with revolutions. In the midst of this, we have England, you know, trying to stay with under Queen Victoria with the Bible. England staying with the Bible. And in America, too, we have the Pilgrims holding the Bible and such. But in the midst of all this, we have very much unrest, revolutionary spirit, and then we have this ugly spirit of socialism and communism coming in, getting rid of any Christian beliefs and making them into a new world order. Isn't that what's going on today? So let's stop there. We're done with this chapter. Now we're going to go into a new unit. So, whew, that was quite a deal. So I hope you got something out of this. I sure did.